Hey, everybody. Welcome to our first edition of Industry Chats. Tonight, we've got Eric Ostrander, UI/UX designer in Nashville, Tennessee. Eric, welcome to Interactive Design.
Dude, man, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So Eric and I go way back. We've known each other since 2005. Best friends, worked together, and first met each other at YSU.
Oh, yeah, dude, it's crazy to think 15 years ago.
Yeah, it's wild. We're going to come up on our 20-year anniversary. We'll have to do something fun.
Dude, we will, for sure.
So Eric, the point with the Industry Chats conversation is my hope is over this semester, the spring semester of interactive design, that get a chance to interview some folks who are into industry, specifically doing things around UI, UX, web design, and things like that. So you're our first one, and just thought maybe you could share some insights over the next 20 minutes or so about your life and your career as a web designer, UI, UX designer.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Well, hey, it can only get better from here, right?
Right.
With these videos. So
Yeah.
I'll start it off. No, yeah, like you said, man, we've known each other now. It's crazy to think, almost 20 years. I'm from Columbiana, Ohio, not far from YSU. You and I obviously did not know each other prior to that. Coming to YSU, I just remember when I was in high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I loved art, was passionate about art. Came into YSU, actually kind of was undecided major. I didn't even actually declare a major. I was kind of focused in photography, but I didn't actually, like I said, I didn't declare a major, but taking the art classes around it. And, day one, you and I met in that first class, sat beside each other, started a really great friendship. And yeah, man, then it was just like, the doors opened and I learned more and more about art and kind of the different paths in industry. Didn't even know really anything about graphic design.
Yeah.
My school kind of wasn't at that point yet. We tinkered in a little bit of web stuff, but not to what they're doing today, which is awesome. I'm loving to see the progression that these schools are doing. But yeah, man.
Yeah, I remember those early. I mean, I graduated high school in 2005, same as you.
Yeah.
And some of the early stuff we did in high school, which I mean, folks nowadays have such a tremendous advantage, I think, as it relates to web design, UI design, UX design. It might not be called those terms, but I remember using Microsoft Publisher and creating, sliced out images to create our bowling website for Campbell Memorial. But yeah, we met day one in foundation class. We took 2D, 3D, intermediate together. And then why don't you tell everybody a little bit about kind of your journey through YSU? And I have some other questions for you as we keep going here.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So yeah, we met in those early, kind of introduction classes. And, I think, like I said, as I was kind of discovering art and kind of, that next level, unfortunately my path kind of ended a little short where, I kind of went that first year, ended up kind of just doing some stuff, worked a couple jobs and stuff and kept really great touch with you, and actually it's funny because, I felt like I was actually I should have just stayed because I was in the studio equally as much helping you with projects and doing stuff, which was awesome.
Yeah. Eric was pretty much my subject in all of my projects. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I was a model. I helped critique, right? I helped build. It was awesome. So yeah, I should have just stayed the course. So that way we both could have got credit.
You had a head start whenever you came back. Yeah.
Yeah. But like I said, took a little bit of time off, ended up coming back, definitely refocused and stuff like that.
And when you came back, the program was now graphic interactive design, I think, by the time you came back. Yeah. So you had the chance to take some interactive design courses, get at least familiar enough with web design, in those, I think probably in the early years of what is now the GID program, if memory serves. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it had just maybe switched over, might've been a year in or if that. And now, interactive was part of it. They were really excited about adding that to the program and, had some early, I would say experiences, with a little bit of code, a little bit of CSS and HTML. Obviously we did some WordPress, Drupal, those kind of things. So yeah, it was, like I said, it was early, and it was just enough to kind of know and, be able to, talk the talk a little bit and, explore, but I mean, not probably near what you guys are doing now, which is awesome, of like really kind of diving into, the UX part of it, the experience part of it, and really getting to understand the audience, and what you're building for, which is cool.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us a little bit about life after YSU? You came out with, like you said, just enough to be dangerous a little bit in web
Yeah.
design, but probably, I remember your portfolio, a lot of great, graphic design, print design type portfolio pieces. And the one thing I remember distinctly was this awesome Pizza Hut app that you had. But why don't you tell us a little bit about life after graduation? What do you do now, and or what were you doing then, and what are you doing now?
Yeah, for sure. So, like you said, I knew just enough to be a little bit dangerous. And so had a really great opportunity when I was in school to work with the advertising class on what was considered like, it was called like the pitch or an advertisement,
Mhm.
competition. And so we got to compete with other schools. And that year, the client was Pizza Hut. Every year it changed. And so that year it was Pizza Hut. And so Pizza Hut was just trying to, have these schools basically explore new ideas and innovative ways that they could obviously get more customers and sell more
Mhm.
pizza, right? And so it was really cool actually to work with that group. And I kind of, in hindsight, kind of wish I would maybe did more marketing classes because I mean, really, out of, when you're out and you're in the industry now, you're like, man, these two go hand in hand, like the
Oh yeah.
business kids and stuff. It's hand in hand, and we're working with people, every day that are in advertisement or just project management and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And so anyhow, had that opportunity, got to really showcase some skills of what potentially an updated Pizza Hut app could look like, and adding some new features. And I think at the time our big pitch was like this whole like family around the table or friends around the table kind of thing, and it could be anybody, right? It's like,
Yeah.
today's family is literally a mixture of everybody, right? It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be the traditional mom, dad, whatever. It's everybody. And so we had this whole idea of like how cool to be on the app if like everybody could basically like put in their order, have, kind of like chip in what they want. And then, and it kind of put these slices around the table. And then, somebody ordered mom, dad, whoever, aunt, uncles. Like I said, it's a, your friend, right? Your family
Yeah.
is your family. And so, you can make an order. So anyhow, it was cool. We went, we competed, unfortunately didn't win, which we were kind of salty about. But it was cool though, because we were known as, oh, you're the team with the cool app, because we had used early Envision. And
Yeah.
and most of these groups, I mean, again, they're mainly advertising majors. And so they didn't really have a lot of design kids with them.
Yeah.
And YSU had this great opportunity where they were like, hey, we're going to team up with design, right? And we're going to put this together. And so we took it kind of one step further. And so we were kind of known as, the school with the app.
Yeah.
And that blew everyone away because we used a prototyping tool that most people weren't familiar with or hadn't
Yeah.
done anything with.
Yeah.
And it
And
looked
so,
real.
what we're doing in the class right now is using Adobe XD
Mhm.
to build out prototypes. And what I remember about your Pizza Hut app was there was no code. You just you
Nope.
designed it. I don't remember what program you designed it in, but you designed it and you published it into InVision, which is really similar to what we're going to be doing with XD into prototyping, where you can
Mhm.
hook up hotspots and things like that. So you were able to showcase an experience that placed well, that got great feedback, that lets you use it as a portfolio piece to land a job without doing any code, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. So, like you said, early on, that would have been Photoshop that we were
Yeah.
basically making all these screens in. And that was the thing, right? You used Photoshop and you'd splice, right? And then if you were doing any type of code and stuff, you could obviously insert your images, but, and kind of lay a page out like that. But like you said, with InVision, it didn't require any code. It was all just screen based. And then you basically uploaded all of those images, and then you hotspotted everything. And then
Yeah.
you had the ability to basically make things tappable. And then again, since I built it and was helping demo it, I knew exactly. So, I mean, it looked as if we were
Mhm.
just, it was an actual prototype, that was actually functional, even
Yeah.
though it was just hundreds of screens to
Yeah.
make the illusion, which is
Yeah.
crazy when you really think about the amount of screens to kind
Yeah.
of fake it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really cool.
So you came out of YSU with a killer portfolio
Yep.
piece as the Pizza Hut app. Tell us a little bit about your looking for a job, getting a job, and kind of what you're doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I remember like my professors, when I was there, always talking about connecting, make connections, really network with people. And again, I mean, that can be within the art department, that can actually be with advertising, that could be kids who are doing, biology, whatever, right? Meet
Mhm.
people, make connections, make friends, because you don't know down the road, who you're going to come across, or potentially, right, somebody remember you or you remember them, and those opportunities. So remember hearing a lot of that, made a lot of great friends while I was there. And then obviously staying in touch with you over the years. When I kind of got closer to graduating, and I had shared with you that we were doing the Pizza Hut thing and stuff, it led to that great opportunity for you to be like, hey man, we're looking here in Nashville,
Yeah.
and if you're interested, you should come down and interview. Which is funny because I don't think I knew what I wanted to do coming out of school, like whether I wanted to do print or web,
Mhm.
but I was open to kind of explore and just seek opportunities.
Yeah.
And so I remember when you were like, yeah, let's do this, come on down and stuff. And I interviewed, and I was just, really thankful to have that opportunity and that friendship with you, to have that, to have that interview, because I mean, that at least got me to the table to have that
Right.
conversation. It's on me after that, whether or not it's a fit, but it helped at least get me to the point to have that conversation with a group of people. So it was cool.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, connections are so huge. Obviously, to help, as you described with your experience, that first step into the door, just to have a conversation about a potential job. But then even for me, I've seen, the same folks I worked with in job number one ultimately helped me land job number two,
Yeah.
and my friends helped me land job number three, and job number four was right back where I started from with job number two. So connections have played a huge part. But so you and I work together in the healthcare industry. Maybe tell us a little
Mhm.
bit about what your day to day is like as a UI UX designer, and how you use some of the skills maybe you learned in college in your day to day.
Yeah. Yeah. So, making that transition, right, from, kind of primarily graphic design. Again, I did have a little bit of, the interactive. So, making that transition kind of into full UX UI, was a little bit different, mainly because I would say, and this would be something I would encourage your students and stuff as they're in your class, is
Mhm.
when you kind of get into the web, space particularly, it's more about the experience and the audience, and understanding what those goals or what those problems are that you're trying to solve. Not that there aren't in graphic design, because there is, right? I mean, you're doing that,
Mhm.
but print's different, right? You have a little bit, and I don't want to say it's, creativity, because I mean, you do have creativity in web as well, but it's like there's a little bit more play and a little bit more aesthetics of just like,
Mhm.
of really captivating, a type of look and feel and stuff like that. And again, it all plays into print as well. But in web, specifically, and maybe healthcare, because, that's what we print, but it's like, hey, if somebody's in an emergency situation, like in healthcare, how do they navigate and how do they find what they're looking for, without roadblocks, right? Because,
Right.
especially when you're when you're not just kind of flipping through, say a website to shop where it's leisurely, and you're just relaxed and you're just kind of seeing and browsing, kind of window shopping, right, through the
Mhm.
web. What does that look like from somebody who's in a different mindset of now, hey, it's urgent. Hey,
Yeah.
I need to find help immediately, or I'm concerned about a loved one, or, I want to see if I'm able to visit them. What is that like? And can you do that in a way that somebody can navigate and find what they want, and make that experience great,
Yeah.
so that they don't stumble along the way.
Yeah.
And so that was a different mindset, right? Because
Mhm.
I mean, I love, and sometimes I actually miss the projects at school, because it's like that you could dream as big as you wanted, and kind of like whatever your niche and path was of what you enjoyed, you could explore. So like, I know you're a bowler, you love bowling, I love
Yeah.
basketball. So it's like
Yeah.
if we wanted to redesign, say a site, for ESPN or something, right? Like we could do that, we could have some fun with it and stuff like that. But now kind of being like in this healthcare space, it's a little bit different, because we all experience it, but we all experience it in different levels.
Mhm.
And so some people, might be a little bit more frequent, some people might be literally it's just a physical, and some people might have not been there for years, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do you hit all those audiences, but then also who your primary audience is, and
Yeah.
make that effortless.
Yeah,
So
you're
yeah, it's
you're
fun.
describing user experience design with that.
It's user
Yeah,
experience design,
yeah, and
exactly.
it's all about defining, your understanding who your audience is, right?
Yeah.
Understanding what their primary objectives are for how they're going to interact with your design or your experience,
Mhm.
and how to remove, I think you used the term roadblocks, how to remove any roadblocks from their path to completion or their path to a successful experience within your site.
Right.
And that's, to your point, there is a lot. As for me, I didn't really have a ton of web, our experiences in college as it relates to web design were vastly different. I mean, I
Yeah.
had one class in web design that was us hand coding our website from scratch in a text editor. And that, that helped because it allowed me to speak, the terminology, allowed me to know what HTML, CSS was. But ultimately, I don't do any coding in my job. And I know you don't really do any coding either, but just enough to understand it. But it was those principles of print design,
Mhm.
of typography, of hierarchy, of layout that transitioned into, the career in a UI UX experience. And then layering on top of that, understanding your audience, understanding your persona, understanding your, the scope of your work, your primary objectives, which ultimately lead to, I think, a great UI UX designer, and some of the fundamentals in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say those foundational items are key, right? I mean, you named it: hierarchy, white space, right? I
Yeah.
mean, the ability for somebody to go to a page and it not be, completely cluttered and jam packed, and you're trying to put, everything in a spot. And your students will learn as you kind of do more of, you'll hear terms above the fold and all these different things, right? All these different things that people throw out, but understanding those, right? Understanding those terms, understanding, those foundational items that make great art and great design, whether it's web, print, whatever it is,
Yeah.
sculpting, painting, right? Knowing those foundational things all apply.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really neat. It's really neat to see just how many, like I said, different paths you can go. And yet you could talk to any artist, right? Outside of that. And it's like, and you all are using those elements in different ways, but it's really neat how they all, interconnect. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so cool to know. I mean, what you're working on and your career path. I mean, you graduated from YSU. How many years ago? It was 5 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy, right? Yeah. 5.
Yeah. And now, I mean, the product that you are kind of the lead designer for is, serves hundreds of thousands of patients a year, of people who are coming to the site a year, if not a million plus.
Yeah.
And that's really cool to think about the breadth and how much goes into that behind the scenes to make a great product. What would be, if you had to just maybe rattle some off,
Yeah.
top three things maybe you've learned as it relates to, graphic design, to UX design, and your experiences that you'd want to share with the students of the interactive design class?
Yeah. I would say my biggest takeaways from school would be, especially kind of being in the web and UX, space is you'll hear the term empathy a lot, right?
Mhm.
Really kind of understanding and being able to help, again, navigate and solve a problem. But again, not in necessarily your shoes, because you may not, you may fit the description of, the persona, the client,
Yeah.
or, kind of what they're trying to, or I shouldn't say client, but, the user that
End
they're
user.
trying to
Yeah.
target or whatever, right? That your client's trying to do. But you may not, right? And so it's like it's sometimes it's awesome because when you do fit, it's like, oh yeah, I can think as a, 30-year-old, whatever. And or you can be like, okay, well, how would my grandparents use this, right? Or
Mhm.
my parents or my children, right?
Mhm.
Eventually. And so I think empathy is one big one that you'll hear all the time. I think user testing is another one that's probably going to come up in your class a lot.
Yeah.
That's huge. I don't think that is, I never kind of, that wasn't like a graphic design element, I would say, right? I wasn't like making something and then testing with my friends, like, hey, how's this poster like, make you feel,
Yeah.
or like, hey, can you find whatever? Like, I wasn't doing that. Like, I was making cool stuff and people were giving me feedback, but I wasn't like, again, like trying to make sure that it had the elements to be functional, right? I
Yeah.
think functional is like kind of the big thing. And so within your class, you guys are going to do a lot of this testing of, hey, cool, I have an idea or a thought, or maybe I just have questions. And now I need to take this to, X amount of people and just say, hey, if you were on this site, what would you want to see, right?
Mhm.
What
Yeah.
would be, in healthcare, what's something that really, grabs your attention, or something that really like you feel like, you need to, or why you go to that site all the time, right? Someone might say, I'll pay a bill. I need to
Mhm.
find a hospital. I'm looking to see if I can find a doctor, right? Or
Yeah.
make an appointment or something, right? Those might be the things that come up. If it's, say, you know, a sports store will say Dick's Sporting Goods, right? It might be to find a particular athletic gear or
Yeah.
whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so kind of understanding what those buckets are, asking people, right? Because you can make the assumption and say, well, I think it's this. But
Mhm.
then you might hear commonalities of someone come up and say, well, I never would have thought of that, right?
Yeah.
I never would have thought where's parking at the
Yeah.
hospital? Like
Yeah.
I never would have thought of that, right? You just you assume people just drive and know and they figure it out. But
Yeah.
maybe out of 10 people, 7 of them say, I'd like to know where I'm supposed to park or
Yeah.
go or check it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
So
yeah.
I think testing early and learning that stuff and really getting feedback helps, especially eliminate assumptions.
Well,
Right.
yeah, and if I can just piggyback back off that, I think to your first point of empathy and understanding your audience and your users, the next step is understanding what they need out of a site, and that's kind of what you described or an experience. And yeah, we're for sure going to dive into some really basic fundamentals of user interviews and feedback and iteration. I think for me, I've touched on that at times I've been able to speak in front of uh, other university and college classes. Is for me, I never had any experience like that either, but it was kind of that kind of peer critique. Your
Yeah.
willingness as a designer to put your work in front of your classmates
Yeah.
would be the most relatable thing to user testing. I remember the first time I even thought about putting my product or something I was designing professionally in front of the end user to ask for feedback. I was terrified because it kind of showed all of the warts of my design, if you will,
Yeah.
and but I think if you embrace that, especially early on in the process, it lets you iron out all the kinks, all the wrinkles in your design before you ever go live, just by allowing for not peer critique,
Mhm.
but end user critique. And it's a whole nother level of you being able to be even more sure that what you're designing is actually the right thing, and it's not just your own bias or your own opinion, but it's actually something that's going to make the users' lives easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's so funny. Design's so like humbling, right? Because it's
Oh,
like
yeah, yeah,
I remember being in school and you go through critiques and stuff, and that's tough, right? I mean, all your students are gonna go through every class and they're different and stuff. But like I remember like there's certain classmates or even now, professionally where you're like, man, that person's really good, right? Like they're just
mhm,
really good. And it's so humbling when like even they come back and are like, oh yeah, we got a ton of changes,
yeah,
or
yeah,
like, oh
yeah,
yeah, like this and this came up, or I didn't think about this, and you're like, oh okay, you know what I mean? Like it's humbling because it's like sometimes you can kind of get artists. I mean, I feel like we're so kind of like trying to do our best, right? And you want to make sure you're honing in on your craft and getting better and stuff. But it's good to know that like even the best of the best, and especially top typographers and designers and people that you'll study and stuff like that, like you'll hear them talking in interviews of like, oh yeah, like we reworked this how many times, right? Or
yeah,
someone, or this
yeah,
got changed, or they didn't like it, and I'm like, man, okay, it's all part of it. And I
yeah,
think that's good to actually kind of see and know that, because at the end of the day, it can be extremely difficult to hear somebody kind of rip your stuff apart a little bit,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Or be like, what were we thinking here? This doesn't work. But at the end of the day, though, if it solves the problem and you get to where you are and all that feedback leads to something better, well, then again, that's the whole execution,
part
right?
of the process. Yeah,
Doesn't matter, yeah, how I thought it might have been. It matters how it needs, it gets to where it needs to go.
yeah,
And so if you're not expecting to get feedback or criticism or have something come up, well, then you're doing something wrong, right? Because again, even the best of the best are always like, how can I do it better? How can
yeah,
we make it simpler, right?
yeah,
If they weren't, I mean, I don't know. There's Apple, Android users in your phone, but you'll notice your phones update all the time, right? So they're always trying
yeah,
to at least do better or something cooler. So
yeah, yeah. Well, cool. Anything else in your top three things you've learned from your journey from graphic and interactive design into a career as a UX professional?
yeah, man, I just say, like I said again to your students, like enjoy it. Art is fun. I think school is fun. I think it's a great time to really explore, get creative, do whatever, pick fun projects, really kind of, hone in on that craft, get all those tools in your tool belt, make those connections. Again, because you never know who you're going to stay friends with. I mean, I have a really great buddy who works for Disney. I mean, it's awesome to hear what he's working on. Obviously, working with you in healthcare has been a blast and fun. And then again, I mean, you're in an industry and you're in a space where like the web is huge, right? And it's going to just continue to get bigger and better. And the fact that you can basically have a career where you can work anywhere in the world. I mean, how cool is that? Like, as
Yeah.
long as you have a laptop, you can work anywhere in the world. And actually,
Yeah.
as long as you have, paper and pencil, you can prototype and build out and sketch anywhere in the world. But it's
Yeah.
like, it's so cool. And like, and who, I mean, even with, I know it's unfortunate that with the COVID, I'm sure you would love to be with the students and working in the classroom and stuff. But it's
Yeah.
like, hey, look, in this time right now, like we're still thriving and being able to like innovate and build and do stuff, and people are finding stuff on the web, and actually probably more people are spending more time on devices than ever because of having to isolate and stuff. And it's like, but we're still solving problems and people are still able to get what they need, and whether those are purchasing or whether it's help or whatnot. And so it's really neat to think that like we are in that industry to have that impact.
Yeah. Man, I think that's a great way to end it. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
think
think,
it's perfect, right? I think we nailed it.
yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
have no cuts. No, it'll be
No,
great.
we did it. Yeah. Well, thanks for jumping in and spending a few minutes with the class. I hope they find it helpful. It's always good to hear from folks who are in the industry, who, especially folks who have come out of, the same program that the students are in right now, and who have built a pretty successful career doing UI, UX design. So thanks for jumping on, Eric. I appreciate your time. For those folks who are in the class, we'll be doing some more of these, hopefully interview somebody around user research and also user experience design as well, and hopefully have a few more of these coming up. But hopefully you found it helpful, and excited to hear what you think about it in your comments and your descriptions below. So Eric, thanks again. I appreciate it and hope you have a good evening.
Dude, you as well. Thanks for having me. I wish all your students the best. You guys are gonna do awesome, and hopefully, maybe someday we'll see some of the stuff you guys are doing. So,
Awesome. Thanks, Eric.
thanks, buddy.